let's just get right into this. You were just saying, uh, you just predicted the full moon tomorrow. What's
Hmm.
going on?
I don't
That's
know.
interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I seem to be in tune sometimes with
We're
that.
sitting here and he's just like, something feels off. Is there a full moon tonight or something? I'll look it up tomorrow. Tomorrow there's a full moon.
I've
So
done it a
it's
few times before. I don't know. Maybe I'm
I
in
don't
tune with
know.
the moon somehow,
I
but
mean, possibly. I do think there's something to that.
oh, I do too, 100%. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't think there's much to like general astrology. We're talking about
well,
the astrological signs in general, but I
I
think,
think there is.
well,
I think people
different than what we
oversimplifies it.
understand. Yeah, yeah,
Because we just understand it as like people saying, "Oh, you were born in this month," and it's
yeah,
like, okay, you got a 1 in 12 chance or something. But when you really break down astrology, it like goes down to like the second of the minute
yeah.
of the year, and it's really detailed, and it's got. I think there's something to it. It's just it gets dumbed down to the
I would
most
agree
basic thing, and
with that. Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily work. But
Like
I do
positions
think
of like when they talk about like Jupiter's in retrograde or whatever, all this bullshit that they use. That's the kind of stuff I'm like, okay, well, when you start to really get
yeah,
specific,
there's stuff to that
yeah,
because that's like cycles, right? That
yeah.
that gets into like cycles and weird things going on. I just you're not supposed to swear in the first few seconds of the video. I think we didn't. I think we swore.
Did we?
I
Oops.
don't know. I was just hearing about that deranks your stuff if like the first 15 seconds or 30 seconds or something you have swearing or something. I
Oh
don't know.
shoot!
I don't know.
See what I just did there?
Yeah.
I said shoot.
Well, we're 2 minutes
That's
in.
true. I guess we're
We
I
can
guess
say fuck
we're pure
balls
fucked.
all we want.
The bots stopped listening.
Yeah, well,
But
fucking
it's like, have you ever seen? You've probably never seen this movie, Goodfellas. I think it's Goodfellas.
no.
Goodfellas. Pretty sure it's good. Yeah, it's Goodfellas. Where they're being. No, sorry. It's I think it's Casino actually. They're being why all their phones have been wired. Like they're being listened to, right, by the FBI, and then so they know when they're gonna turn off. Like
Hmm.
when they're gonna stop listening after like 30 seconds or something like that, and they'll know. And then the minute it'll be like their wives talking on the phone, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, "Okay, the FBI have stopped listening." They'll grab the phone and they'll talk to each other real quick. They're like, "Blah blah 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 blah," and then that's it. And they go back to the work. So that's what we'll be like when we first start the podcast. We're just like
Yeah,
on our best behavior.
we're being good.
We're being very good,
Always.
and then all of a sudden they stop listening.
Yeah,
Fuck shit. Fuck.
yeah,
It's like Tourette's.
yeah. I wanna dive into that. Where do you get this feeling that makes you think that there's a full moon and then happen to be pretty damn right?
I don't know. Honestly, I just feel like something feels off with how everybody's interacting with me today, and even a little bit yesterday, and like today for sure. And it's happened to me before when a full moon's coming on. And it's
Mm.
actually the same sort of thing. I've asked somebody if is there a
So
full moon.
it's like messing with people's behavior. I've
Yeah,
heard that presented as like it
and my sleep pattern is way off all the time.
as fucks with
It
your
fucks with
sleep.
my circadian pattern.
Mm.
So I just like last night I just couldn't really sleep. I just kept
Mm.
waking up every like 20, 30 minutes, and then I'd look at like my phone's my only source of clock in my like by my bed. So I'll look at it and be like, what? Like it's only been 20 minutes?
Mm.
And then I can't get back to sleep for another 10, and then I'll doze right off and I'll wake up again, think it's been like a minute, and it's been two
Right.
hours. It's like it just starts to fuck with my whole
I had
cycle.
one time when I was a kid, I had a sleep where it felt like I blinked.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what it felt like, but it was a full night's sleep.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
It
had
only
it
happened once though.
never
I
been
was a little
that
kid.
short, but it's been really short where I feel like, it'll feel like 5 minutes to me, and I'm like, I'll look at the time, I'm like, fuck, man, it's been like 7 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have weird dreams at this time? These kinds of times?
No, I don't really remember my dreams
Yeah,
like
it's hard to say, right?
enough to know. Yeah. Like I'll go on like 2 or 3 nights per, sporadically where I'll remember dreams, and then
Hmm.
I won't remember dreams for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I have for a long time now. I've had a dream journal beside my bed, and I haven't written a single thing in it yet
Oh, really?
because I can't. When I remember my dreams, they don't make sense enough to to put it
To
into
write it down.
words
Yeah.
necessarily sometimes, or like when it does, or like I'll wake up at like 2 in the morning because I'll have to pee, and then because it's 2 in the morning. All I want to do is go back to bed. I don't want
Right.
to sit down
And
on
yeah,
it.
you don't want to like take
But
yourself out of
that's
that near sleep.
usually that's the most like when I remember the most. It's those like I woke up and it's 4 a.m.
Mhm.
and I gotta go to the bathroom, and so I don't write it down, but I really need to.
Isn't there something to that as far as like the interrupted sleep that's when you remember the most dreams
Yeah, I think so.
because you've been interrupted and it's
Um,
like it's fresh right there? Because every time I've ever been like interrupted and I've been dreaming or I remember a dream, it's a vivid dream to me. I remember it.
yeah, I think there is something to that,
Yeah.
which is weird. I don't know.
Why'd you want to start journaling?
It's supposed to help. Well, for one, I've told you, I've had weird experiences with dreams,
Hmm.
like pretty detailed precognitive dreams.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if writing them down, I might see correlations because like a lot of people who do have somewhat frequent precognitive dreams, they'll find that um, there'll be like a theme
Hmm.
or like a thing. So like whenever there's, I remember, is it a movie, The PK Man?
Okay, man.
Have you heard of that? There's a movie about a guy who was like having these precognitive dreams and he was using it to like solve crimes and stuff. It's a real story of a real guy, and I was watching an interview with the actual guy,
Hmm.
and he was describing that in his dreams he noticed like if there was like dogs driving cars, like that meant something to do with like terrorists, or
Hmm.
like if it was like raining, that meant like somebody was gonna die, or if
Like
it
this
was
was
like
specific code to him?
yeah,
Like, oh, okay.
yeah, it's like in his dreams, like so if this sort of if you know if he's in his dreams he saw a dog driving a car, then at some point something would manifest to do with like terrorism or something like that.
Wow.
And if it was raining, I think that had to do with that was like somebody was gonna get killed. And if it was like snowing or something, it was like somebody's gonna get hurt, but it's not gonna be like deadly.
Hmm.
And so it's like people have these there's like symbols that come through in dreams that maybe make sense if you can
Right.
remember them. And I kind of want to do that. It also supposedly helps with like lucid dreaming,
Hmm.
which I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to be able to lucid dream. One very brief lucid dream, just maybe like 10 seconds of knowing that I was in a dream. And
Hmm.
that's the only time ever. And I thought it was cool. But there's so many things that I want to do in a lucid dream that like I just
Like fly and shit like that.
yeah, fly, so like see what can be done in that space. Like,
I'd want to see if I could fly off the planet.
well, you probably could,
Well, that's right. And like to see what
but
my experience would be outside of that. And if it were
mhm.
outside of what I sort of think I know, you know what I mean? As opposed to
Yeah,
like something, where I could correlate it to things I watched. It
yeah,
would be
well,
like,
yeah.
oh,
So like maybe lucid dreaming is a form of astral projection, as you're kind
right.
of saying. Is like you're actually going out there. Yeah, I think that's possible too. Or you get to the state of astral projection through lucid dreaming. Maybe I know that lucid dreaming is really interesting because they've done research on this where they'll have like I think it was lifters. Yeah, I think it was lifters. They had the group that was able to lucid dream and a group that wasn't lucid dreaming. And they had the same workout routines and the same diets and everything. They were monitored very closely. The ones that were lucid dreaming, they were told to, in the lucid dream, do
Like work
lifts,
out.
like
Yeah.
work out in their dreams. And they had faster progress.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's like you can actually train your body uh, in certain ways.
Hmm.
You know, improve skills or learn
I do,
things.
you know what? I don't have any basis to completely agree with that, but I just feel like I like fundamentally agree with that ability. You know
Well,
what I
well,
mean?
think about
Without
it.
any basis of
If a dream is just is the same neural
yeah.
firings without the body moving, it makes perfect sense that you would be able to get better at things.
Hmm.
It doesn't. It's weird that you can like improve, like have faster muscle growth.
Well,
That's
I
a
mean,
little weird to me,
that's
but
all. That's
it's maybe not because it's like maybe it's tricking the
yeah.
system
Your body's like,
into
hey, you know what?
thinking, yeah,
We've damaged our muscles. We need to now send a bunch of
yeah, even though it hasn't, but it still is
yeah.
doing it, and then it's so
But I told you
that whole
like
thing is fascinating to
I
me.
told you even like last night when I was leaving, and I just had like this strong sort of thought about the sump pump,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like I'm It's funny because I'll say
That's an
this to people.
intuition thing.
Yeah,
That's
I
an
say this to
intuition
people all
thing.
the
Yeah.
time. These kinds of things. I get these intuition things, but but for some stupid reason, it's like my conscious mind is fighting it. Like
You're trained in a materialist
right.
world, in like the materialist perspective, which is not a slight to, because everybody is. That's how we're taught. That's like just the world we live in. And so when you have those things, you can't. If you were raised in like a spiritual sense where stuff like that, where there was like a heavy emphasis put on that, like you should take your intuitions more seriously when you have certain feelings. You should listen, or at least look into stuff.
Mm,
If you were raised in that, I bet you wouldn't have that sort of nagging of like, it's nothing, it's
mhm,
nothing. Because in your mind, or in your indoctrination, it's like, well, there's no possible way that I could be picking up on something
mhm.
that's about to happen or that's happening. So I'm just being paranoid. So I'm just gonna go away and do
And
it.
it probably was
Yeah,
happening when I
maybe.
thought about it.
It depends on what time.
Because
Yeah,
you literally text me maybe an hour after
yeah. So
with the
probably,
flooded basement.
yeah. It's probably
Right. So it was
probably
probably
close.
literally that the sump pump had stopped working at that.
Certainly, yeah. Certainly the one that, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the main.
the main one. Yeah, for sure.
So how
Just with the
fucked
amount
up
of
is
water that's
that?
in there. Yeah,
Like that, it's fucking crazy. And
yeah,
we're talking about this right now, and we're making such an emphasis on it. But the next time I have one of these sort of intuition thoughts, I'm gonna fucking ignore it again
yeah,
because I seem to want to do that. I wish I could just almost like your sleep journal. I should just do that where I just journal it and go,
yeah.
okay, I had this thought, and it was pretty strong, and just journal that shit, and then if then track to see how many times it's actually coming.
Journaling can help a lot. Yeah, I have that too. That's why I want to. I still have not as much as I want to, but I really want to get into like a disciplined meditation routine of
Yeah.
doing it every day, because that, I think, can build your intuition, make you in set like to get into wooey stuff.
Mm.
There was an experiment done. Um, how did it go? I think what they were doing is they were showing the participant images, pleasant images, landscapes, flowers, insects, whatever, like
Mm.
just pleasant things to look at.
Mm.
But then every once in a while they threw in like pornography.
Mm.
So it like shocks the system, right?
Yeah.
You're used to seeing like a pretty flower and then porn. And you're like, what the fuck? But they were fine because they had the people all hooked up to electrodes and stuff. They
Mhm.
found that the body was having a physiological reaction prior to the pornographic image popping up on the screen.
Like almost like
Within
a little
milliseconds.
spike, and they're like, "It's coming." Bang.
Right before, within milliseconds.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like, a minute earlier, but it's like before the person actually uh, saw it, the body was reacting to it,
Right.
which is really interesting. I think it shows that we do have this intuition about like what's going on around us and what's happening. Like time is a little weird, and we
Yeah.
can maybe see into the future a little bit. Well, I think for sure we can see into the future a little bit, whether or not we can control it. But I think that that's where intuitions come into play, and I think that if you can get in tune with your body much more to where you can almost sense those small things, you'll be a lot better at acting in the world.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
I wonder if I just kind of had a thought. I wonder if remember we talked about this before, and I've said that like children. I think children have a
yeah,
sixth sense of their awareness. Like they're aware of things that we aren't aware of.
yeah.
Um, what if I would say that probably like earlier man. I say that without the sex word in there, man. Earlier human.
Well, they're like lesser than men anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
don't. They didn't exist until like 1920 anyway, right,
yeah,
or
they were
something like that.
invented in 1920. Biggest
We
mistake man ever made, inventing women.
we just had the 100-year anniversary. Yay!
Yeah,
But no, but prior to like the invention of like sort of modern technology, let's say over the last couple hundred years,
mhm.
um, and it was more simplistic, farming, and that
Well,
kind of
even
thing.
before farming, I think it was better.
Well, what I'm saying though is like I think when you go back further like that, you had less distraction.
Mhm.
Um, that we might have been more aware of different things.
Yeah,
Would probably explain why
I
like
believe that fully.
ancient ancient civilizations were much more in tune with the cosmos, right? But
There's
maybe we're getting back to that. Maybe we've gone over this tipping point now where we're so sort of technologically advanced that we're now taking away um, our uh, not basically our need or the trouble of getting information, the trouble of getting different things to us. For example, you want to get groceries, you just order them and have them come. You don't even have to go out to get them. So taking away these sort of responsibilities now might be freeing our minds back up to sort of be aware of other things that we used to be more
No, I
aware
think
of.
it's the opposite. I think we're the
Okay.
farthest we've ever been. I think everything about our culture uh, almost worships short-term gratification.
Oh, that's
Like you
true
can't
for
sit
sure.
still for more than 10 seconds. Look at what's dominating social media, shorts,
Mm,
very short form videos that just play forever. I think we're farther away from that than we've ever been. Now it could maybe usher in a resurgence as people kind of realize this is fucking stupid.
mm.
But to go back to that point, there was a Mysterious Universe episode where they were talking about this guy who went into the um, I don't remember. I think the story took place in like the 60s or the 70s, and this guy went into one of these areas where there was this hunter-gatherer tribe that he knew about the tribe, and locals knew, but they didn't know exactly where they were, so he was just kind of looking for them. And he went and he eventually found this tribe and kind of became friendly with them and spent a lot of time with them and had a lot of weird experiences with them where like
They touched his penis a lot.
these tribes people would like they would have like group dreams like what they did is they in the morning they would all get together and talk about their dreams, and a lot of them would have like similar dreams, and that would signal that something would happen. Like one of the stories was like there was this flower blooming, and
Mm,
they all talked about it, and they all went to go and see it later that day because they recognized that they had the dreams because it was happening. So they went and they just knew where it was. They just knew,
yeah.
right? And there was all this weird stuff about where they would be going through the jungle, and they would just always know like how to get back. They would always know how to get water, and they would always just somehow be able to find like fruit if they were hungry or whatever. There's just a weird in tuneness with nature that they were in
Mm,
that completely baffled him. And then he had personal experience because he was like they were kind of teaching him their ways, and he had personal experiences with this. Um, so I definitely think that go back to a simpler time when we were just living in the jungle that we're much more in tune with things, and I think we have our consciousness has I don't know abilities or awareness that we've just pushed aside.
See, I can see both ends of that, and I can agree. Where my point of view on my idea there, not necessarily it's not something I feel super strong about. It was just sort of a fleeting idea. It would be that now we no longer have to worry about things, trivial things to us now that are trivial, like getting
Mhm.
food or um, just things that you would have had to concentrate on doing before, getting warm, or these kinds of things that you would have had to concentrate on doing back in a simpler time where it was like, oh shit, okay, well we've got to prepare, we got to start preparing dinner, we've got to we got to
Mhm.
make sure that we've got wood for the fire and all that kind of stuff that you would have had to sort of concentrate on making sure that you were prepared to do, whereas we don't have to do that now. So like
Right, but we choose to distract ourselves 24/7. I think we have the
but the
means.
distraction might not be strong enough
I think it's fine.
because
Yeah.
for example, I mean, and you've got to know this, so you would have to admit this, how many times have you been sort of watching something and then you're distracted with something else, you're thinking about something else or whatever, and then suddenly you're like, oh fuck, like it might be like
Mhm.
a video or something you wanted to watch, and like 10 minutes into the video you go, I really don't have any idea what's going on, and I have to rewatch this. It used to happen to me with books all the time. If I
It
One of the
happens, yeah.
reasons why I don't read books very much, unless I get one that I really just somebody recommends or whatever, I'll read it. I'll read like I get through maybe a page and a half. Usually it's no more than that. Maybe 2 pages or something. And I'll go, shit. Like I don't really know if I know exactly what just sort of happened.
No,
So I'll have to
I do
reread it
exactly
again.
that. I do
Yeah.
exactly that. I'll read a page and a half and then realize that the last page that I've been reading, I haven't been paying attention. I
Right.
don't actually know like I was reading it, but I don't actually know what's going on because I was thinking about something else.
Yeah.
But I think that's the product of the scattered brain of like the distraction and things. Like
Yeah.
I think we have the means
Yeah.
now to sort of I don't know, harness. How do I say it without sounding super hippy dippy?
Yeah.
To like harness like the spiritual aspect of reality
Yeah.
and like become more in tune with that. I think we have the resources to do that because we can. We can deal with all that
Right.
stuff. We
Right.
can have our shelter and our food and cope with all of that. But
But
what
we don't.
most people do, we don't. We sit down and we're like, okay,
But
all
maybe
my
we're
needs
being
are met.
forced to.
To
Maybe it's like forcing itself back upon us,
that could
and
be.
we
It
don't know
happens.
what's happening.
Happens cyclically with like the psychedelic renaissances.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what's going on. Like you have a resurgence in psychedelic use, which kind of makes people awake of this other aspect of reality that we aren't really thinking about, or that society kind of rejects.
Yeah.
We definitely are moving in a direction though where society is it's open again to that stuff.
Hmm.
Like it isn't like talking about interdimensional entities isn't really. It is if you pick a normie on the street and ask them about that, like it's totally taboo and like what the fuck are you talking about? You're a
Right.
crazy person.
Yeah. I
But
didn't hear that on CNN.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when you look into like what's actually going on, like they're doing research trying to study the DMT realm, and they're like in the UFO conversation, which is now you did see that on CNN.
Hmm.
Um, they talk about what these things could be and like all of the weird shit that happens around them. That's like, well, is there something like extra dimensional about them,
Yeah.
or and all that jazz? These are things that are like that just have entered the zeitgeist
Well, that's
that never were
something
there.
they're not going to be able to. I think it's like they're trying to get ahead of that kind of stuff because there's no stopping it. Once we start going to the moon on the regular, once we start,
If we're allowed to.
yeah, well, that's true. Right?
Who
Well, I mean,
knows?
it's now they're bidding for the second second contract from NASA, right? So like you've already
Mhm.
got fuck off. You already got um,
They do have lunar missions on the go.
right, right. And and I mean, I think the real idea is to get a base up there
Mhm.
because then you can launch shit very easily from the moon
If you
as
could build it
opposed,
from there, yeah, or if you could,
yeah,
or at very least, if you can, if you have Elon Musk's Starship,
Starship. Yeah,
if that thing could land on the moon, if you could refuel it on the moon, it could go pretty much anywhere.
isn't he talking about once they sort of perfect that he wants to get like 1,000 of them
Yeah,
going? Yeah, so like
yeah,
imagine having 1,000 starships
yeah.
just
Well,
going
because
back and forth.
the most, I think what a lot of people don't realize is the vast majority of the delta V, the change of velocity required to get something into orbit, is used to like in that initial ascent. It's used to fight against the atmosphere.
Right,
It's used to fight against gravity and get up to speed. But once you're there, it doesn't take all that much. Like
right.
if you took a fully built Falcon 9 rocket and the both stages and everything, and you just stuck it up in orbit, low Earth orbit, that thing could go anywhere
Hmm.
in the solar system, most likely.
Hmm.
Um, I don't
It'll
know what
take
the
a while
actual.
to
I
get.
don't. Well, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah,
Time,
yeah.
obviously, but in terms of like what where it's trajectory wise, where it's capable of actually going with the delta V that it has, you can do that. And so think of the payload size of that thing,
Hmm.
right? Like when you have a starship, at least the upper stage, which is I think what it's supposed to be. The upper stage is supposed to be able to make low Earth orbit on its own if it's
Hmm.
empty, and then you obviously you fill it with stuff, and you can make orbit with the lower stage. That thing could refuel in orbit, so now you have a full tank in low Earth orbit. Fly it out to Mars, land it on Mars, probably without even refueling, take off from Mars and come back to the Earth. And like,
Sure.
think about the possibilities of that.
That's what I mean.
Having that transportation, having that mobility that we just have never had before.
I think honestly, personally, I just think it's the moon first. It has
Oh
to be the
yeah,
moon
it's gonna be
first.
the moon first.
I mean, because it's so much easier to put something on the
Right here.
moon than it would be to even put like a orbiting space station, if you will. Um, the idea of building that is probably just as hard as getting to Mars because you've got to now put that shit together out in orbit, right, and continuously get shit there. But being able to land something on the moon and then just building it on the moon, other than the fact the moon is fuck ton cold, Um, I think you could. I think if I think it's a lot more feasible to be able to put something together on the moon and then stage everything from there. And I think we could see that in our lifetime
Yeah, if you
easily.
can,
Your
if you
lifetime
can,
for
all
sure.
you need to do is get fuel. If you can get fuel, that's what's easier. Because yeah, with the lower gravity, the smaller everything, and it being further out around the Earth,
Mhm.
it'd be easier to go anywhere if you had, a starship fully fueled launching from the moon than
Right,
from
right.
the Earth. Um, but
I
yeah,
mean, if you, I wonder about like I don't know anything about this, and it just dawned on me. But like solar powered uh spaceships, essentially, because once you
mhm,
get onto the moon and you've got something set up, the moon gets so much sunlight. I think it's like 2 weeks at a time or something like that. On the one side, we'll get
yeah,
sunlight.
there's a lot
The
of energy.
the problem with that though is like storing that energy. You're
Mhm.
just going to lose a lot of it. Like you need storage capacity like crazy to be able to store that kind of energy. But if you were bringing it in and then using it, bringing it, using it, bringing it, using it,
Yeah,
and
the
constantly doing that,
the thing about solar powered engines, they have them. They have a very low thrust. So they're
well, you
really
wouldn't need that thrust
good.
in space.
Well, no, you would to get anywhere in any kind of timely manner. And if you're talking about being around the Earth and the Moon, it's going to be an issue. It's going to take you a lot longer than you would want it. But if you're going out much farther, especially if you're trying to like get to the outer reaches of the solar system, they're probably going to be very useful because they do have a lot of delta V for their mass. I think though the batteries are an issue, but if you're constantly generating the power with big enough solar panels, then
Well,
that
this is what I mean. I would think that this is me spitballing. I'm not an engineer or a rocket scientist, but if you say launched your, so I know that the moon is like um, as far as the gravity, it's like 1/5 of the Earth. As far as the atmosphere, I forget what the math is, but I think it's less than a fifth as far as getting shit up. Um, as far as the energy that you need, the thrust that you need. So if you utilized rocket technology to get it up, right, and then maybe one for burst. When you're in space, it's zero gravity. Once you get going, essentially you can just, I mean, you can just coast for the most part. They don't need to keep rethrusting. You know what I mean? They'll just slow down.
yeah, but it takes a very long time to get up to speed, right? So here, let me see if I can pull up. Do we have like paint on here?
Oh, probably. I think every thing has paint.
It just comes default, right?
Yeah, yeah. There it is, right there. Paint.
Boom. Okay.
Excuse me. Are
Um,
you gonna draw me something?
I'm gonna try to share the
Oh,
screen here so that yeah, I'm gonna draw you something. I'm gonna
are you
show
gonna
you.
paint me something?
I'm gonna paint you a picture.
Oh, that's sweet. It's a,
Um,
it's a New Year's miracle.
there we go.
We've been gone for so
Paint,
long. Tyler's been honing
paint.
his skills,
There we go.
his painting skills.
Paint is up and running. Okay, so can I make a circle?
This is a tutorial for paint.
Yeah.
Welcome to the paint tutorial. This is 1997, and we're going to show you how to use paint. It's a great little program. You can just paint things.
Apparently, I don't have the option to make a circle. There's a circle.
You need the
Okay.
tutorial on paint.
All right. So let's make it smaller. Right. So let's say this is the moon. It could be the Earth. It could be any body possible. Right.
Right.
And so you got
This is going to be awesome for somebody watching
your
this.
orbit right here. Look at how detailed. Look how detailed that orbit
That's
is. Right.
good, man.
So you're going around.
It's a
Right.
little bit of an oblong, but okay.
Right. So the issue is getting away, getting out to escape velocity.
Right.
So because this is a moon, if you're around the sun, you get a little bit more leeway. But also it matters because if you're burning from here, your orbit's gonna kind of go like this, right? Versus if you're burning from here, it's gonna go out like that, kind of kind of in that oblong shape. So if you have the electric thrusters, they have a very low thrust to weight ratio, so it takes a very long time for them to accelerate.
Hmm.
Um, you're gonna have you're gonna do something like this where you're gonna extend it out like that by doing a burn here
Hmm.
for a few minutes, and then you're gonna have to wait until you get back around, and then do another burn,
Hmm.
and it's gonna take a lot longer than maybe you would want to get to escape velocity.
Mm.
So when you're in big areas, like so once you're already around the sun, that's when they're useful because relative to where you're orbiting, like so if you go back to if this is an orbit around the sun, the amount of time that it's going to take you to go from here to here would be like very long, like weeks or
Hmm.
even months potentially, depending on how far out that is from the sun.
Hmm.
So you can get that trajectory to go out as far as you want by burning a very low thrust to weight ratio engine for just that entire period of time. But when you're dealing with the shorter distances of like just being around the Earth and the Moon, um, it it's a lot harder to make that work.
Mm. I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
Maybe you are a rocket scientist.
I played a lot of Kerbal Space Program. You should play Kerbal Space Program, and
Mm.
you'll understand uh, a little bit
I learned
better.
everything I know from a game.
I mean, you learn a lot about trajectories
Mm.
and about like delta V and like
You know what I learned about?
actual
You
requirements.
know where I learned trajectories from?
Throwing stuff,
Worms.
worms.
Worms Armageddon.
I mean, that's true,
That game's
but you
awesome.
don't learn any orbital mechanics.
I'm wicked good. I'm wicked good at
Yeah,
throwing shit, man. I'll hit you right in the head.
yeah.
2 shots in. I figure out one shot. Oops, missed by a little bit. Next one, you're dead.
We
You done, bud.
have Art here joining the chat. Backing up as I caught up, perhaps the best way to document your dreams is to dictate them when you're in a semi-dream state, but conscious. Reach over and dictate. That way, you're not quite awake,
That's
and you
true.
don't have to write it down.
That's true.
The writing it down is just about memory, increasing your ability to memorize them.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a lot harder, easier said than done. Because as anybody who's ever been in a semi-awake
Yeah.
state, you're
Trying.
kind of out of it,
Right, right.
and
He's right.
trying
If you
to
were to just sort of dictate to
yeah. If you
something, just
decide
press
where you
something,
go,
dictate, and just say blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
I'm gonna dream about this today.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately where I want to get to. I want to be able to like, okay, I want to like, if you can get like a space that you can automatically go into when you first start dreaming that you can recognize, and then you can be like, okay, I'm in a dream. Boom, now you're lucid dreaming. Now you can, take advantage of the lucid dreaming, and you could maximize the amount of time you can spend in there doing that. But
I
and people
have
do
had a
that.
lucid dream before.
Yeah.
I think I told you about this. But I'll say it on YouTube now, even though it's whatever. I was. I shouldn't say this. 'Cause I'll probably get in trouble for this. I was young. I was having sex. Sort of. I wasn't actually engaged in sex, but I was engaged in sexual congress with two women. And and then I woke up and I realized I was and I realized I was dreaming, but I was like, I want to get back into that dream. And I got back into the dream the minute I closed my eyes again. And then I was able to kind of control what I
You
was
knew
doing.
you were dreaming at that
Right.
point. Yes.
For about and all I really remember for maybe the next minute. And then I woke up.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened exactly. And I woke up, it was hours later, which was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the like most common thing people do in lucid dreams. Is they have sex.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, you can kind of just have sex with anybody you want. People who do it say that it's kind of like it's just like the real thing, basically.
This
But
was weird for sure because it did hang with me for a little while
yeah,
after, like the feeling of it and everything, and like
well,
the taboo of it. I
I
guess.
have had dreams where I've had sex, and like in the dreams, it is kind of it's just, like it's pretty damn real. Like it's hard to say that there's a big difference between that and the real thing. Like the
Mhm.
way everything feels and all that jazz. It's weird that that can happen.
I just find everything. I find everything weird in dreams. Like,
No, just stop it there. I find everything weird
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that we're fucking here doing this.
That's true. But it's like, so if something's happening in a dream, like sexual or whatever, certain like things just can't happen. Like somebody can't touch me,
Mm-hmm.
and these kinds of things, like these limitations where it's like, and then I'll wake up and remember it and be like, oh, that was weird,
Yeah.
but I have no control. And I would never be able to go back into it. Or like it was only the one time I was able to ever do it. Like I remembered it so well that I just went right back into that scenario.
Yeah, I always find I have a hard time like running in dreams, like very
Yeah,
slow and like almost like you're underwater.
punching for me.
punching, running,
until I
all of it.
realize,
Punching too.
yeah,
Yeah, punching too is very. It's weird. It's slow. It's like you're underwater almost.
it's like I can't hit the person hard, and they're looking at
Yeah,
me, kind of like mocking me. But then every once in a
yeah,
while, it's happened where I realize, I guess I must be lucid. I realize I'm dreaming, but
yeah. If you know you're dreaming, it's a lucid
it's
dream.
not necessarily that I know I'm
Um,
dreaming, but it's like as it's happening, I realize that
mhm,
something's happening that's stopping me, and I go, I'm going to stop that from happening. And then the next time I hit him, it's like,
yeah,
boom, it's gross.
yeah.
And then I
Fight
wake up.
through it. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's not like I realize in that dream that I'm dreaming. It's like I realize whatever
yeah,
limitation was holding me back, I'm not going to let that thing hold me back anymore. And then the
yeah.
next time I hit him, it's like,
That could be a personal development thing of like you solving some issue in a
yeah,
weird way in your life,
dreams
something
are
that
so weird and
you feel
interpretable
is
that
holding you
way.
back. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's like, I
I
thought about getting a dream book the one time, but some of that I think's hogwash too. That's some of that's like people's determinations of what different dreams
it's their
might
own.
mean.
I think it would be different for everybody. Like this
Right.
guy dreaming, when he has a dream about dogs driving cars, like that's some kind of terrorist
Yeah.
act. I don't think that that's necessarily the case every time somebody dreams about dogs driving cars. I think that's personal.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know.
I get the teeth one a lot,
Sometimes you get the teeth one.
or the
Sometimes get
naked.
the hair
I get the
one.
naked one a lot. The hair one, I guess I'm just so used to hair being gone.
Yeah,
And it wouldn't even phase me in a
yeah.
dream. But I get
Um,
the naked or like underclothed. I get the teeth one, and I get that I can't find something, and it's always related to my job when I was a courier.
hmm.
I'm delivering, and then I can't find my truck.
I've never had
It's
the
weird.
naked one. Oh, I've had not being able to find something like losing my car or something. Oh, I had a weird fucking dream. I had a weird, really weird dream a while ago, and I was gonna tell you about it, but I forgot because you were involved.
Ooh,
It was
sicko.
like we were having a party here. There's a whole bunch of people here, and you and I were doing cocaine, which was weird.
That is weird.
And
Since I've never done it before.
yeah, exactly. Um, and like the house was different. Like my friend was different and everything. But like at some point in the dream, like someone had like gone into my apartment, but the only thing they took was my car keys, and they took my car, and then my car was gone, and I was sad. It was
Ouch.
so fucking weird.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
And I was like, "Where's my fucking car?" And then I was like, "Okay, I gotta call the police and file a police report." But then I couldn't hit the right buttons on my
Mm,
phone as I'm doing it. Like I couldn't
yeah.
couldn't get it to work. It's like
I always
weird
find
fucking things.
the weirdest dreams are the ones that are close, but then have real oddball shit in it.
Yeah,
Like to make it,
yeah,
it's almost like your subconscious is letting you know you're dreaming, fuckhead, because this is clearly not something that could be real.
yeah. But it just goes to show how malleable we are.
Yeah,
That we end up that we're in that space, and
yeah.
it's just oh, this is just reality, I
I
guess.
know.
The rocks are floating and there's
Right.
fucking the weird shit, weird lines streaking through the sky, and this is just reality. And you
Yeah,
don't
this is
think,
how it
like, oh,
is.
fuck, that's not normal.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it definitely
We
is
just
weird.
accept it.
I don't remember enough dreams to have too many instances of it, but most of my dreams are very non-reality based that way, like where it has a hint of my reality, but then so much shit in it that just does not. It's like nonsensical, like shit like
Mhm.
that. Like it would be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an instance. Well, where and a lot of times it's where people are you're a person, but you look different. You don't look like I know you, but I know it's you,
Right.
which I find is funny too.
That is weird.
Yeah, yeah. That's a lot. That one happens a
I think
lot.
that happens to me too, now that I think about it,
Yeah.
which is
Where
very weird.
the only and what makes it even what makes that even weirder when I have those um dreams where I have dreamed my brother or my
Uh-huh.
parents. Not my dad very often. It's a couple times, but my mom more than my dad, but my brother more than anyone. Excuse me. When I have a dream of him, he looks exactly the same. And it's a short period of time before I realize that he's not supposed to be there. So and that's and then
Mm.
then it's whatever was happening is done. it's like now it's like one-on-one conversation with him, and I'm trying to connect with him,
Hmm.
and then I wake up.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's
And I
weird.
usually wake up. Sometimes I wake up like crying, but
Mm-hmm.
not like actually physically crying, but I'm like
Mm.
crying.
Like emotional.
Yeah, like, but
Yeah.
I feel myself crying, and sometimes I think I'm making audible sounds of like
Oh,
crying, audible crying sounds,
yeah.
which is weird, eh?
I wonder if it's real.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's
I've thought
actually,
of
I
that.
feel like that's actually him in there.
Like he's coming through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like you're able to connect
I
through
want to
the
believe that. And
layer.
obviously, I think that would be fucking
I think it's
cool as shit.
possible.
I do too, but I just don't have
Try
any
proving it. Yeah.
evidence to say that it is right. But I would.
Yeah.
I wish like I could say something and be like, "Hey,
Well, do you ever
do this thing."
remember anything that he said?
Not now, but I remember I did a few times. I remember the one time he
Like
was saying a year. He
a
kept saying
year
1997, like 90 July. I forget what it is, July something of 1997, July 12th or 13th or something like that. And I was
interesting,
trying to look back to see if I had like memories from
or
that,
something
day,
happened that
but
time at
that's
that
almost like
day.
pre 97. I just finished high school
Yeah.
essentially, so it was like um and we would have been hanging around quite a bit at that time period
Hmm.
too, because he came back to high school to finish high school. My brother was almost 5 years older than me, and then he came back to finish, and we all kind of hung out. So it would have been a time that we would have been hanging out more often than not.
Right.
Um, I would have been what 17, 18, 97. No, I would have been I would have been 18 going on 19. So yeah, so I mean, I was probably going out to the bars and stuff a little
Hmm.
bit too. So I don't know. I thought about that one. It was definitely July something. I want to say the 12th or 13th, but
Yeah.
97. It was 97. And that one stuck with me for a while. And I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what it meant,
Yeah.
but I couldn't come up with anything. So, but it
It
was like
could.
he
Yeah.
was a,
It could be something that happened to him at that point in time. He's trying to tell you, but he can't.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Something that was maybe
Yeah, it's so
relevant,
weird. It's
but
that kind of shit so weird. And I'm so open to it, but
yeah.
I'm also so skeptical too. Because I'm
Yeah.
so in the idea of the realist, where I think, okay, this is my mind making shit up.
Yeah.
My
It's
mind's
so funny that
coping.
you call that a realist, though.
Well, I know, but
Because it is such a dogmatic,
yeah,
basically a religious perspective where it's
mhm,
like I've taken on faith this one thing, right? And I'm just discounting this whole entire avenue of possibility and that it's kind of been a part of humanity forever,
right.
right? But people say no, that's a realist.
I know, yeah, I
And
know,
that's
and I
like
use
no,
that term.
you're actually the opposite of a
Yeah, I'm
realist.
using that term as the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the most literal sense that we know it,
Materialist.
and yeah, but not in that sense because I'm not. I don't know what I am, to be honest. I'm so agnostic with everything that it's
Mhm.
hard for me to say what I am because I'm malleable. If you tell me
Yeah,
something and it makes sense on different levels for me, um, not that I'm gonna, just believe it, but I'm gonna put it in my sphere of plausibility, or even, even possibility to plausibility. Like it's gonna be in that range, right? Um, so I don't know. Like I find the older I get, too, the more uh, malleable that way I am. I used to be very rigid,
yeah.
but
Well,
now it's
I
like,
was like that. I was like a staunch materialist. I was atheist. I was, you know, I'd scoff at anything. Like the idea that there was I would have advocated that consciousness is a product of like the brain,
mhm,
and not even entertain the alternatives. And the idea of any kind of like ghost or any spiritual thing is all hogwash, poppycock. And and then I took too many mushrooms one night.
and it blew your whole mind open.
Well, I had a couple experiences that one night that are impossible from that perspective. I
Mm,
had the out of body experience where I was like on one side of the room looking at myself with full control over my body still. I was just watching from like the other side of the room. Like,
mm,
okay, that shouldn't even be possible. Assume that mushrooms are just jumbling around your signals in your brain to cause some kind of thing. How is that possible? It isn't. It just isn't possible. It doesn't make any sense in my current worldview. And just full blown ego death. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to rethink everything that I thought that I knew about
mm.
reality. And then I became more open to things, and since then I've had experiences that are just like, okay, that's weird.
See, for me, it was more just being uh, sequestered, I guess, from information. like I just didn't avail myself to, um, I've always availed myself to, astrology and like the stars and all that. I've always been interested in that since I was a kid, but
Astrology or astronomy?
astronomy, astrology, I
Yeah.
didn't. Astrology, I was very meh about that.
Yeah.
But then I started to open myself up to that idea of that. I mean, the idea that Jupiter could control, because of its
Yeah.
sheer size, even it could control all kinds of different things with the Earth's rhythms and the solar system rhythms. It's just, it seems to make sense to me now, but
What I
at the time
find
it didn't.
what I find is weird is just looking up basically the zodiac signs. Um, like it just doesn't. So like for me, mine fits into Aries, which they say independent and strong-willed. You are a force to be reckoned with. You love nothing more than an exciting new goal to tackle, and you do your best work when you're flying solo. Your passion and energy keep the rest of us on our toes. Um, that like really does seem to describe me better than like if I were to just pick a random one. You're Gemini. Your ability to get along with a wide variety of people makes you a bit of a social butterfly, but you'll take advantage of some alone time when it comes your
That's
way.
not you.
Curious and deeply emotional. You love ritual and celebration.
But you
Like,
you could pick a little out of that and say, oh,
a
okay,
little,
ritual.
a little, sure, but when you say social
Right,
butterfly, that doesn't really
right.
fit. Get along with a wide variety of people, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Read Scorpio, see if it
but
makes sense for me. From what
Scorpio.
you know of me. Keep going. There you go.
As a Scorpio, you have a sharp edge, but this isn't always a negative quality. It gives you an appreciation for authenticity and a strong sense of independence. However, you're not always as tough as you appear. Once you let people into your life, you're a bit of a softie. I'd say that describes you probably better than every other one.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. It's just weird how a lot of people say, "Oh yeah," but they're very broad and vague. But it's like, yeah, but
Well,
the one that's supposed to be
there's
me
12 of them.
describes, yeah,
There's 12 of them to describe 7.5 billion people on the planet. So
yeah,
obviously they're very broad.
yeah, and also
But
too,
when you delve in,
like everything else, if you look into like okay, in Aries, there's probably a whole book on
yeah.
Aries and the
And
types
that's
of
where I was
Aries,
talking
and
about. Like, that's where I
um,
like, at first I was like, how the fuck do you describe people into that? But then when you start delving into it
yeah,
further and you go, okay, 365 days, you have cycles of the moon, cycles of the sun, cycles of all these different stars. So you've got this and that going on. You have
well, all the
so many
cycles are different
different
lengths too, right?
possibilities. You'd have to see what position the moon was in on that day of, the day you were born, and then to see,
Mhm.
to lock it all down. So yeah, maybe I share I share a lot of personality traits with a number of people that were born on that day, right? Um, because of various different things. Maybe the time of the day.
Hmm.
If I was born at the same time of the day with as someone, in Toronto or whatever, right? And maybe we have we're so
Location
very
might be
close.
relevant too. Yeah,
Yeah, it could be, we're relatively close, so we're so close in personality that we would be very, very, very similar,
hmm
but not exactly. So like if you start getting into nuance like that, I can get behind it. But at first it was the whole idea of astrology being okay. Well, there's 12 different
yeah.
fucking signs, and all
But
that.
it's a very there's a
Yeah,
very surface level way of looking at it, and then when
yeah,
you dive into it, you realize, okay, this is actually really complicated.
yeah.
Um,
So that's what made me open to it a lot more. And it was actually somebody I knew that was sort of teaching me a little bit about it. And I was like, okay, well, I
mhm.
get where this is interesting. Just like tarot cards and all that kind of stuff, right? When you look at the surface level and shit like that, you go, this is pretty fucking hogwashy.
Sounds that way.
But then when you get
And there's
right
probably a
into
lot
it
of people
more,
doing it that do it that way.
yeah.
But
I told you the one tarot card reading I had from a friend of mine
oh
who's dead now. She gave me,
yeah,
yeah, she gave me a tarot card reading. This was before a lot of bad shit happened to me. And then
she
she
said
was
it
like,
was. Oh
she
yeah,
goes,
she didn't want
I
to do
don't
it
want to
because
do the reading.
yeah,
She goes,
not good.
it's not, it's just not a positive reading and I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
And I kept trying to get her to delve into it. She goes, I don't know. She goes, I don't have specifics. I'm not like a,
yeah,
but she goes, from all the cards and everything, she goes, everything it was going to be a negative sort of reading and I didn't want to read that. She goes, I was like, oh, fuck, great. What do I
yeah,
got going on? I guess I'm going
yeah,
to die. I was making jokes all night about like, I'm going to die and all this stuff.
yeah.
And she was like, no, don't joke. She's like, it's blah, blah, blah. And she
Yeah.
was like kind of all upset about it and stuff. And she was a little on the nose, I guess, because some pretty bad
Yeah.
shit happened to me in a, a year, basically the next year or so from that
Yeah.
point on. But,
Yeah.
man, I don't, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know shit,
Yeah.
but I'm also smart enough to be open to the idea that I don't know shit. And if you can show me some interesting things, then I'm open.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a lot to that stuff, and it's interesting. I don't know how we can use it.
I think we're going to see more and more. I think we're going to be more and more in tune when we start being spacefaring. Unfortunately, I don't think
Maybe.
I'm going to see it. Like, I think we're going to, it's like pieces of the puzzle that we didn't know are going to start to come together a little bit better,
Yeah, I wonder if eventually we're gonna sort of be publicly communicating with aliens, and they're gonna be telling us stuff,
Oh, fuck. I want to live in that time.
you know?
I want to live in that time, man.
Like,
Come
yeah,
on, man. Just come to me. Talk to me a little bit. I won't tell anybody. Yes, I will.
yeah,
I'm
yes, you
going
will.
to talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
If Beck
mean,
ever comes to me and tells me about him and his race,
so it's always interesting what people report when they like encounter entities on psychedelics, because like some of the things that the entities say, it's always like, oh, that's interesting that like they say something like they give us um technology at a level that like you don't understand it. Like
mm,
they describe like, oh yeah, you can build anti-gravity by doing these things. Like, oh great. I don't know what any of that is.
hmm
Right? But like you come back with like, well, I was just told how to build a UFO. I was, you know,
you know who fucking blows my mind, and I've not done any research enough to know if there was any kind of he had some links to like pseudoscience at the time. Gene Roddenberry, the guy who made Star Trek,
oh yeah.
everything that he
Wasn't it
predict in
was it
Star Trek.
Star Trek that was there some of them, or there's at least one famous show that was like channeled.
What do you mean?
You know what channeling is? That people go into a state, and the concept is like there's like something on the other side that's passing information
Hmm.
through them, and so they're in like a meditative
Would
state, and
that
they're
been maybe
receiving
that might have
information.
been like Doctor Who or something.
I don't know.
But I don't know about
Um,
Star Trek. All I know is that
yeah,
Gene Roddenberry, if he wasn't some kind of astrophysicist or something like that, I don't know where he was getting his information from. Because if you look at shit they talked about in Star Trek, even like the original series and then Next Generation stuff, the shit that they were talking about, you hear about it now, and they're talking about it now. But prior to that, maybe in some like weird science magazines that I didn't, that you never heard of or something like that. But just simple things like even like propulsion systems and stuff that they used. Um, and now, for example, excuse me, Star Wars or Star Trek. Star Trek said like they would travel at warp speed, right?
mhm.
So I think they got to a warp factor of 10 was the most. I think. I think it might have later on in the movies and stuff they might have gone past warp 10. But anyways, I'm pretty sure warp factor 10 was as fast as they could go. So 10 times the speed of light, right? Um, Scientists used to say that it was impossible to break the speed of light. That was the barrier. But now it's almost a consensus now that they say that they can see how it would be theoretically possible if you bend space and these kinds of things that you could go faster than light. So it's like it's funny that they said no, it's impossible, but yet this show was never saying it was impossible. They were doing it.
Yeah, they're just doing it.
They were just doing it, right? And they were talking about uh, photon torpedoes and I don't know, warp bubbles and Dyson spheres and all this different shit that you'd never fucking heard of.
Gene Roddenberry's experiences in
Channeling.
channeling and seance
Oh, there
groups.
you go.
A lot of ideas were put into Star Trek. So
Fuck,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah. So there's some there. There's something, I
Fucking right,
guess.
there's something there because he somehow knew some shit,
Yeah,
man.
and so what is being alleged through channeling is Sometimes the teachings come from an author or producer's direct personal contact with beings or UFOs. Sometimes the information comes via dreams or meditations or from DMT experiences, but often the information used in plot lines as well as particular characters is a result of knowledge and insights gained in channeling groups and is considered channeled information. And quite a bit of the material that was put into the Star Trek series came from Gene Roddenberry's experience in channeling and seance groups. One of the groups he regularly attended met in the US in the 1980s, where information from a Council of Nine was channeled by Phyllis V. Schlemmer. So,
Fuck me, eh? Look at
yeah.
that. Yeah, I think you would have enjoyed Star Trek.
That,
Should we talk about that?
that's not on the stream. Yeah. We got 5 minutes left. Let's
We get in trouble. We get in trouble. Fuck it.
let's ruin it anybody's day here.
Let's ruin it.
Um, I gotta bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cover your eyes if you're. That's it right there. If you're a little bit sensitive to this kind of thing.
All right. Look at that.
What is it, Tyler?
That is Klaus Schwab at the beach.
That's this. I love what he's. I love this. I love what he's wearing over his penis.
Oh, see, there's his face. Now you can see him.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, is that like a little dinghy or something?
That's
that
a little
just
dinghy.
holds over there.
I'll tell you what I would do if I got roped into somehow wearing this
Do that.
thing. I would stuff it and make it bigger.
Make it bigger.
I would have to. I'd be like, oh, it's.
You're not allowed to though. It's the rules. If you want to be the supreme leader of Earth
Yeah.
one day, you gotta wear it exactly as is.
Yeah. Fuck that dude's weird.
He's definitely weird.
His whole
as shit.
fucking his whole.
I'm gonna take it down now.
Yeah. His whole
What's his shtick?
entourage.
What's he doing? What's
Yeah.
the World
He's an
Economic
alien.
Forum up
He's an
to?
alien.
Maybe, or he's working with the aliens.
He's a fucking alien. Let's be real. Yeah, he's a weird alien.
Maybe.
That's why he's never gonna die. It's just be like, what? He just keeps getting
That's
older.
what everyone
How
said
old
about
is
the
he?
Queen, though. Are we just gonna keep moving on to people,
Yeah, I guess.
or did the Queen?
Queen. I don't think the Queen was ever a extraterrestrial. I think the Queen was just a normal, or maybe
Probably.
this is what the extraterrestrials do. They just use the body until it's no longer useful, and they go, okay, well, we'll let this one die, and we'll carry on to a new thing.
Yeah.
You know, but Klaus Schwab is just going to be forever.
Klaus Schwab is
Yeah.
just
Or maybe like
Still
someone like
look like
Bob
that.
Barker, but he's not even political or anything.
no.
Bob Barker's like 99.
Yeah. Charlie Munger just turned 99.
Who's Charlie Munger?
Warren Buffett's business partner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. Warren Buffett would be another guy who just
He's
lived
up
forever.
there too.
Yeah, Warren Buffett's what, 84, I think, or something like that. No, he's older than that.
No, I think he's almost as old as Charlie Munger, if
No.
not.
I don't think he's out of his 80s yet, is he? 92. Holy fuckballs. I
Yep.
thought he was in his like mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
That's what money gets you. And when you
Man,
don't really
those
care.
guys too, they were alive at the perfect time to
Oh,
make
yeah.
money,
Oh, fucking right.
right? Just like
Like in the
born in,
50s
born
and
in
shit.
1930, he was 20 in 1950,
Yeah.
so he's had his 20s during like the boom after the World Wars.
Well, I was just watching the Madoff
Could you have lost
Hmm.
money during that time? Is it even possible?
I know.
Like,
Well, it's funny though because I was just watching the Madoff series that's on Netflix, which is good actually. It's a good watch. But he came in. He was coming in the early 60s, I think, or something. Because when they arrested him, he was 70 or something like that, right around 70. And what did they arrest him in 2008? Like late
Something
8,
like that,
like
yeah.
late 2008. So 14 years. So yeah, so he's 84, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's pretty close to that. So he was coming up in the 60s, and it was funny if you watch the documentary, not to blow it for anybody, but what he was doing illegally at first is he was trading, which this was on the ups essentially. He was trading on the OTCs and the pinks, right?
Mhm.
And he was running sort of like a brokerage house. But what he was doing illegally is he didn't have a license to do it, and he was taking on clients and he was managing their funds personal on this other sort of side thing. And that's where he stole all the fucking money from. Like there was a point in, I think in the 60s, there was a crash in like 60, maybe 7 or something like that, somewhere around there. And he lost a bunch of money and then he borrowed a bunch of money from like his uncle or something like that, or I can't remember what it was, but he borrowed like $30,000 so he could make everybody whole. And he was talking about it. He was like, he didn't like it didn't start like he was trying to fraud anybody, but it was more like he was trying to. He had such an ego
Hmm.
about
I just need
being,
more time.
yeah,
I just
like
need more
it's
time. You
right.
know,
And then
that
he
kind
got
of
to the
mindset.
point where he was no longer even making fucking trades. He was taking all this new money and he
Because
was
he just
doing,
kept having money coming in. Yeah.
yeah, and he was never making any trades or
Which
anything.
seems
He was
like
just
so
paying
dumb. Like
people.
he might have been able to just park all that money in
He would
index
have.
funds and kept everybody happy.
He could have got out of that shit.
Yeah.
He could have just given their money back to them essentially and said, "Hey, I'm not no longer doing this anymore. I'm just going to keep this legitimate side of my business." You know, sort of legitimate. I guess it was illegitimate. It became illegitimate, but at the time, a legitimate side of his business, and said, "Fuck it, I'm not going to do this shit anymore. I'm not really even managing." But the ego in him was like, "I'm going to beat the market," and he was showing people that he could get like, you know, I think it was like 12 to 17% returns or something. Even like Goldman Sachs and some of these big companies,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't even look at his hedge funds because they were like, we can't make sense of how he's able to get those kind of
Mm-hmm.
numbers. We don't want to touch that
He's just
shit.
making them up.
Yeah, like so they had a sneaking suspicion that this guy was on the it was shady as fuck. But he was on regulatory boards. He was all over the fucking
Yeah.
place.
He was a superstar.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
superstar in that world, right? So just excuse me. Maybe because he's an alien.
I feel like if he was an alien, he might have been able to get those kinds of returns.
Well, he did it for 50 years, basically. Like
Yeah.
for the better part of 50 years, he was able to stay,
But
you
wasn't
know,
it the crash that got him? Too many
but
withdrawals?
he went through a bunch of crashes.
Yeah, but
He went through
the
ones in the
big
80s.
crash.
Yeah, that was,
And being at that level of stardom where now it's like, okay, you have all this money coming in, and then the crash causes all of these outflows that he couldn't.
I think personally, I haven't gotten to the end of the thing, but I think what happened was at first when the crashes happened, um, either he could talk you know, his personal clients out of selling,
Mm,
keep them afloat type thing, and then maybe take money from his sort of legitimate business and put it over to there, like the brokerage business, to
yeah,
cover losses over here, and then float it. But he got up to the point where
it's too much.
it was
It's too big.
billions of dollars,
Yeah,
and then once the market crashed like that, how are you going to cover billions so from here to there? And people are trying to.
especially if you wasn't he allegedly using it just like for to support his lifestyle.
Yeah, but
It's basically like his bank
I
account.
don't think his lifestyle was. I haven't got to that point yet, but I don't think his lifestyle was over the top. I think it was more that he wasn't doing shit. He wasn't making
Right.
any trades, so the money was literally just sitting
Right. They
there
put $1 billion in his account. A year later, he told them that there's $1.2 billion
or
in
whatever. Yeah,
there, and so he gets $1.2 billion worth of withdrawals, but he only has $1 billion to. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So because I don't really think it was for him. It was like he's gonna spend all this money like other guys because that's how these other guys get caught pretty quick. Like
Mhm.
they collapse because all this money's going out. But he was able to float this thing for, like I told you, like fucking
Yeah.
4.5 decades or whatever the hell he did from
Yeah.
the 60s till 2008. And like I said, he was a part of all the regulatory decisions, and he was sitting on boards and all this shit, right? He was the fucking rock star. I'm interested to watch the whole thing because what a fucking
Yeah.
story that. How
Yeah,
interesting is that, man?
That's wild.
That's fucking crazy wild that somebody could
Yeah.
do a Ponzi scheme for that long.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You started out trying not to be a loser and, beat the market or look like you're beating the market. You're this whiz kid and that, but you turn out to be the whiz kid of Ponzi schemes. So, I mean,
Something.
yeah, something.
You did
You got
something.
the number one in something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's gonna beat that, buddy. So you just hang your hat on that one, I suppose. And on that, I guess we'll hang our hat on
Yeah.
our podcast.
We're at an hour and 5 minutes here almost.
Yeah. We didn't talk about anything we really wanted to talk about. We just
No,
talked
we just went off
mostly
on
esoterical
stuff.
yeah, which was actually kind of what I wanted to do, you know. But we can always talk about other stuff later.
Yeah. All right.
It's gonna keep going on. I'm sure.
Well, yeah, we live in the wacky timeline, so
We do. All right. Well, and today was wacky anyway. You didn't start us with a starting with our intro or anything. So it
yeah,
was kind of
hit
like,
the wrong button.
yeah, oops.
We'll exit on it.
Thanks for joining us there, Artie.
Yeah, and
And
have
thanks
a good
everybody
night.
else. And subscribe and follow us and all that kind of stuff.
Enjoy the full moon.
All right.